everybody, and welcome to Roger Lee's Artist Career Success Interviews. As you know, I'm Roger Lee, and I'm really honored to be here today with John Sovec. John is an amazing performing artist, coach, a therapist, and a speaker. So John, welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here and share this conversation with you and all your listeners.
Well, thank you so much. And the power of social media. You know, in these series, we always tell artists to network and really just leverage that network online. And just so happy, meeting your publicist and being connected is really a blessing. So I'm just happy to see the power of the internet at work.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's really fascinating too, because especially in these really fascinating times where we're in learning ways to stay in touch that have meaning, and ways to stay in touch that allow us to express some of our creativity.
Amen. So I love it. So we're just going to jump right in. You could just tell our listeners and watchers, what have you done in the arts? How did you get to where you are? Journey?
Well, it's really fascinating because, I'm currently a therapist and a coach, and I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and I've been doing that for about 16 years now. Before that, though, I had a really fun, eclectic, and interesting performing arts career. I was one of those singer, dancer, actor types, did some national tours, did some stuff at Radio City in New York, worked at probably any theme park that you could name or think of in your mind. In fact, landed at Disney. I was probably working there on and off for 15 years. And I really had a great time as a performer. I loved it. It brought such joy to my heart. But I reached a point for myself where I had actually achieved most of my performance goals. And I was looking at that. In the middle of that moment of that reset, I actually got an offer from Disney to move into entertainment management. And I thought that was a really exciting opportunity to maybe do a transition and move on to something new and exciting. So I worked in entertainment management for Disney for about 4 years, which still kept me connected to the creative arts, but also allowed me to use my brain a little bit more. And from there, I got inspired to go back to graduate school and then pursue my licensure and now work as a psychologist.
Wow. You have such a unique journey. And it's amazing, again, going from the stage to the office and now a different type of office, right?
Well, and the thing that I think is really powerful too is it also still has encouraged me to use my creativity. As a therapist, I have to really be able to listen and be attentive to what's going on with my clients, and then to respond, not just with rote answers, but to really encompass their world and spark creative ideas that will be unique and applicable to their life.
I love it. Something else is really powerful, what you said earlier. You achieved all of your career goals, right? The performing arts career goals. And that just proves what I always say time and time again on these videos. It's for artists to actually set goals. If you don't know where you're going, how the heck are you going to get there, right? We just don't go to events without the destination in mind. So it's the same thing with the career, right? You have to actually have goals to figure out the route you should even take.
Well, and the thing for me about goal setting, the thing's really important is it's kind of like if I don't have goals, I have no idea where I'm heading. But if I have goals, it's like say I'm in Los Angeles and I want to drive to New York. But the thing that I think is so important about goals is they have to have flexibility so that our route as we're driving can follow all the turns and twists that it needs to take to help us get eventually to New York. If we just say, I'm only going to barrel through and get to New York, sometimes we miss huge parts of our own personal development along the way.
Wow. That's amazing. I hope you guys are taking notes because I am. I took a huge mental note there. Wow. Yeah, so sometimes we get so wrapped up in the journey and the metrics and the method, but none of that's bigger than the goal, right? So we should be flexible enough to kind of maneuver life.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I think about it for myself personally, like you and I connected through my friend Kim, and Kim and I danced together in Atlantic City. I have no idea how I ended up in Atlantic City. It wasn't on my goal list, but when it came up, I got an opportunity to dance with an amazing choreographer, Demita Jo Freeman, and she was choreographing the show we did, and that was one of the reasons why I took the show. And from that, I got to meet Kim. And then eventually, years later, Kim connects you and I to have this opportunity to speak. And I think that's where that, not saying everything has to be so focused that we miss opportunities along the way, but to say, I'm going here, this is what I want to do, and then allow the journey to unfold as it naturally will.
Wow, that's something you said earlier too, right? On that journey, it's where we develop as people. And I think we forget that because a lot of times as performing artists, we are so used to playing a role, we sometimes forget who we really are. So it's important to develop your true self as you maneuver this profession.
Well, I think that is one of the really challenging things as an artist is we often depend on our definition on someone casting us.
Mm,
And, one of the things that one of my mentors helped me understand early on is my creativity isn't just by the jobs I do. It's about the classes I go to. It's about sitting down with my own journaling. It's about my own sense of discovery along the way. It's not just, oh, I got cast in this national tour. Oh, I got cast in this video. Oh, Roger has hired me for his dance company. That in itself is only a small part of who we are as creative artists.
mm, I love it. Speaking of creative artists, I know that you started your career as one, as a performing artist. And was that something that just happened, or did you always have childhood dreams of being a professional performer?
I don't know if I had childhood dreams because it's always fascinating. I think for guys, the journey into the arts is usually different than it is for females.
Yes.
And it was probably in junior high that I started like doing some shows just for fun because some friends were. And I thought it was really cool and I was enjoying it. And then in high school, that started developing more. And I had lots of opportunities that opened up outside of just school shows, being here in Los Angeles. And over time, it felt like this is fun. But when I graduated high school, and this is such a fun story with my parents, I decided to get serious. And I was going to go to school and I was going to study oceanography and biological sciences and move into a very steady career.
Wow.
Well, I went to UCSD in San Diego, really prestigious school. And about 6 months in, I got a contract to do some runway shows for Nike or for Puma. And I called my parents up and say, so I have this opportunity. It's a really cool gig. It's paying a lot of money to allow me to travel. I think I want to do this. And they were like, well, we were waiting for you to figure that out. And so they kind of already knew that I was going to really pursue the performing arts, even though I had tried to serious up and move the other direction. But I think once it's in us, we just have to listen to it. It calls us. I mean, I was enjoying school, but the first day that I got back on stage in this Puma job and was in the studio and we were putting stuff together, like my heart just burst open again.
Wow, that's miraculous because everybody doesn't have that feeling. Even in talking with some friends and family members, they're like, work is work, a check is a check. And that's one mentality. But again, when you're blessed enough to find something that actually touches your heart and your soul, and you can't run from it, and you can try to run and hide, right? But they'll come back and get you over and over again.
Yep, it chased me down and said, by the way, you're going to do this. And what that ultimately led to is for me actually getting a full scholarship to a performing arts academy in San Diego that was connected with another university. So I got my degree, but it turned out to be in performing arts. So I satisfied, my parents' desire for me to have education. And I also got this beautiful opportunity to expand myself as a performer.
Wow. Yeah, we're twins.
Yeah, I have to tell you that moment where my parents were like, we were waiting for you to see that decision as your clear choice was really fascinating because a lot of times I hear people talk about their parents are against them moving into the performing arts.
Yes.
And my parents weren't for or against it. They were for me making the best decision that was the most powerful for me.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. And it's a blessing that you have to even have parents who are open to what you want to do because so many want to live vicariously through their children and kind of force children one way or the other. And I love that George just said, here are the tools, but you
Well, and strangely enough, neither of them had any creative arts background at all. No dance, no sing, no painting, nothing. So where this crazy performer came from, no one in the family ever knew.
Wow. There's always one, right?
Oh yeah, we get to stand out in the crowd.
It's awesome to have that support system for sure. I'm even thinking with my parents, they've been amazing the whole journey. They still are. And they're my biggest fans with everything I do. And there's so many times where I say, well, maybe I'll go a little different direction or maybe give this a break. And they always were the ones to push and be like, no, God gave you this gift. You got to put it out there in the world and do this professionally. So yeah, it seems like you had a lot of that too, though. Just that encouragement makes all the difference.
Yeah, I would say my parents never really understood the drive to do it and the need to do it, but they supported my passion about doing it.
Wow. I love it. Yeah, find passionate people for everybody listening out there, right? And even if it's not your parents, because a lot of times it's not, then there might be a friend, might be a colleague, might be a mentor, might be somebody online, but seek out people who are passionate about your passion because it will help you. And it takes a village to raise an artist. That's always been my motto. So yeah, we got to all help each other out.
Well, I remember actually there was this occasion where a friend of mine, we went over to his older sister's house for dinner one night. And my friend was just a civilian, not a performer. But his sister turned to me during dinner and she said, I just want to thank you because I know how difficult it is to follow the path of being a performer. And I know how challenging it is. And I want to thank you and support you in that because it's a really hard path to follow. And, I think it's important for all of us who are in the performing arts to find our family of choice. To, like you say, find that friend who, when you're like, I can't go to that audition, I can't get out of bed, who says, come on, let's just show up. You don't have to dance your best, you don't have to dress up, you don't have to do your hair, let's just show up. Or to find those people who are like, hey, there's a fun class, you haven't taken it yet, come join me, let's take class together. To have that group of performers around you who can have your back and really be there to support you on the journey. I think it's one of the most important things we can do for ourselves and our own mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
I love it. And especially during these times we're in, right, where we're told to isolate and we have to be safe foremost. Yeah, we got to find a way to do that virtually, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
home, but we have to still connect because can't be completely isolated from folks in that way.
Well, and I think that's one of the things really hard for, dancers and actors and singers and writers and artists right now is this idea of being isolated from our artistic communities. Yes, there is wonderful connection and power that can happen in this world of being, on stage and being a performer. At the same time, we really need to make sure that we are always taking the best care of ourselves with that support, with those loving people around us.
Mm. Amen to that. And this is actually a perfect segue into what I was going to ask you next. So, what kind of work are you doing with artists as a therapist and as a coach?
Well, one of the things that's really coming out right now, I work a lot with adolescents, and a lot of them are feeling even more pressure than we are as adults because, think about it. High school performing arts, you're out there, you're having fun, you're partying, you're trying roles, you're playing old people when you're only 16 years old. Like all of that excitement and energy has been stripped away from these kids. And what we're really working on right now is to try and find ways to find that energy of expressiveness, however it may play out. And a lot of people that I'm working with right now, we're trying to find, well, what are alternative ways for that expressiveness to come out? Maybe you're a dancer. And right now you could dance in your living room. You could connect with other dancers online to create a piece. You could do some social distance choreography, which some choreographers are doing. You could also say, I've got this creative energy. I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to write. Hey, I'm going to express this creative energy by creating jewelry. Hey, I'm going to create this expressiveness through gardening. And I think it's about teaching each and every one of us that this expressiveness does not have to only come out in one mode, that there are multiple ways that it can show up in our world. And if we can simply access those different lines of creativity, we can feed that artistic soul and still have expressiveness and take our place in the world.
Wow, it's so powerful and so needed. Yeah, we get married to the stage, I like to say. Or we think that that's the only place where you can be professional. It's the only place where you can connect. And it's just not true. So I love all those different examples you gave because it's more than one way to get to a place.
Mm-hmm. And, it's also about like still maintaining that community we were talking about a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who sends out writing prompts like once a week. And we kind of sometimes create this like group story together by taking that writing prompt and expanding on it and letting the story build amongst a group of us. I have another friend who commits to doing daily haikus. And they are just these small, intimate little poems that express some moment that touched them in that day. And so it doesn't always have to be on a Broadway stage with a solo and a spotlight. Sometimes it's as simple as writing a haiku about a flower that you saw when you were out walking the dog.
I love this. Wow. It's so needed, so real, so true, so honest. What has been the biggest challenge that you faced now working with artists during COVID? Because this pandemic is hard on everybody, but in particular the creative community. So what's the biggest challenge that you've seen or currently face?
I think the biggest challenge that I see is the fact that as artists, we're often highly sensitive people. It allows us to do what we do. And at the same time, that also sets our bodies up for a much stronger reaction to hyperstimulated situations. And this idea of being in COVID and isolating is traumatizing our bodies. It's causing these huge releases of anxiety and stress that show up by the body releasing cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline. And it just keeps building. There's not a ton of relief that we've had during this time or that we see in the future. So I think it's really important for us to be aware that this hyper-aroused state is happening in our bodies, and we need to find techniques and tips and tools to try and release it. Mm. And some of those that I tend to work with people, if we look at the idea that these are chemical hormonal releases in the body, sometimes really simple, repetitive physical activity, running, being on an elliptical, a treadmill, helps the body to reduce that and put us in a meditative state. It also helps the kidneys and the liver to really remove some of those hormones from the body and helps bring our energy down. Another piece that really helps here, once again, to soothe our system, is meditation and breathing. So many of us, when we get anxious, and you think about at an audition, what happens just as you're about to start? Your breath goes and it shuts down. What we need to do is open that breath up as a performer in those moments. Well, what I'm suggesting is we need to open that breath up now when we're under this really intense attack on our well-being and our psyches, to open that breath up so we have movement going in our body, so we still feel that connection to a bigger universal breath as a way to really calm our systems. And I think that's so vital right now.
It really is. I mean, but you just got me even like looking at the imagery of it all in my own mind. It's pretty amazing. We have enough to even think about these things. I feel like we're just in survival mode constantly. And like you said, we're in this heightened awareness, hyper-stressed, hyper-strong situation, but we're not releasing and giving ourselves the space to just be sensitive and to have emotion around some of the stuff that we're facing, because there are a bunch of pandemics going on, right? We have COVID, but then so much is happening politically and racially in this country and around the world. So, none of us have really taken the time to just kind of woosah and let some of that go.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that I think is so important in the letting it go is that it's a way for us to actually strengthen our body so we can fight the good fight when we need to. If we step into a situation where we're trying to stand up for ourselves or our rights, but we're hyper stressed out or we're depressed or our bodies are shutting down, we're not going to be able to bring our best selves to that battle. But by doing this self-care model of breathing, of exercising, of meditating, of staying connected, we can bring our best selves forward, and that allows us to step up to these causes that are passionate and important to our well-being and the well-being of society at large.
Mm. I love it. And there's so many things to fight for, but I think something that we all need to do a better job of fighting for is actually the mental well-being of artists and creators. Because again, it's kind of this taboo, right? It's like, oh, we could talk about money with the arts and business and the careers, but we can't talk about, people's mental state. And I think throughout history, we've seen a lot of artists suffer in silence. And, unfortunately, some of them are no longer with us as a result of that. And nothing to do with their talent, but everything to do with their psyche. So I would like to see more people advocate for that and see more people doing what you're doing, because it's incredible.
Well, and I think it's challenging too, because for a lot of stage performers, that the key to their well-being is getting cast. The highs and lows that go with that. I had an audition, I got cast, I'm feeling really good about myself. Mm-hmm. I had an audition, I didn't get cast, I feel awful about myself. The only thing that's different in those scenarios is our feeling about ourselves. One of my amazing mentors when I was dancing, shared with me the idea, your job is to go into that audition and bring your best self forward. You have no control over whether you're right or wrong for what they're looking for in their show. You could be the best dancer in the room, but they have a set of pre-made costumes and you don't fit into them. They have a preconceived notion of the hair color that they want to see on stage. You remind them of their ex-sister-in-law who they don't get along with. You have no control over that part of it. The thing you have control over is showing up and doing your best job at every moment. And I think that's a really powerful thing for us to bring, because it's show business. And yeah, the show part is fun, but our business is to take class. It's to show up at auditions prepared and ready to go. It's to work on our weaknesses. If you're a great dancer but a poor singer and you want to get on Broadway, get yourself singing. You know, it is our job to maintain and take care of ourselves. And I think when we get attached to only the result of I got cast, we put ourselves on this emotional roller coaster. And once again, I was really lucky during my performing career. I got an opportunity to work in casting a few times. And in those moments, I was actually working a casting for, it was an international tour of fame that was going out. And there was this girl who came in who blew us away. And they kept having her read and sing and come back the next day and all this stuff. And ultimately, they couldn't cast her because the role they wanted to put her in, the woman there, had an existing contract that went on for another 8 months.
Wow.
Okay? But this girl would have left this audition feeling like she had failed somehow. What did I do wrong? What moment did I miss? Why aren't they doing this? And I asked the casting people if we could make an effort to talk to her, because she was someone you wanted to keep online, wanted to nurture, wanted to keep track of, so you could bring her in later. And what if that one audition had been the one that broke her spirit, and she said, I did everything right and they didn't cast me, it must be me, and she moved out of the field.
Wow. Yeah, how many times does that happen too, right? Because it's amazing that you advocated for that feedback, but so many times they just say next and that's it.
Yeah.
For your feedback, and you always wonder, is it you? Wow.
Well, and that's the thing, getting off this roller coaster of the callback and the cast being the only thing that makes us feel good about ourselves as a performer. You know, I think that's really, really important for us to be able to bring into this performing arts, because a lot of times the people who have longevity in this career are the ones who understand that piece of the puzzle. You know, I have a very good friend, and she's done, I think, 18 Broadway shows at this point. You would assume that anytime she walked into an audition room, she would automatically get cast. She doesn't. But it doesn't steal her ego. It doesn't take away from her knowing that she is a talented performer. And she also knows that there will be a next job always coming along. And that right there is part of the fortitude of what we need to bring as artists into this profession.
Amen to that. Also, challenge artists like entrepreneurially to create their own work, because so many times we're chasing after work. And if this pandemic hasn't shown us anything else, it's proven that sometimes the work just isn't there. So you have to create if you want to work, right? So we just can't always rely on, like you said, casting and other things. Create your own thing. If you have the vision, you have the talent and the passion, nothing's stopping you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the biggest thing that often stops us is really our own mind. You know, I'm sure in the work that you do, you watch really talented people get shut down by fear, by negative self-talk. And those things can influence us, especially when we're alone at night, wondering where the next paycheck is coming from. And it's so important to really be able to face that fear head on, see it, and be able to challenge the story it's telling you. And there's a process we do in therapy called reframing. And fear will often tell you a negative story about yourself, okay? I'm not a good enough tap dancer to audition for that show. A reframe would be like, I'm still learning how to tap dance. I want to take classes to prepare for that audition to see if I can do that show. So this reframe away from fear into what we could potentially do going forward is a really powerful tool, because that fear will always get in your brain and sneak in there. And even with stuff you know, I'm sure you've had this experience. You go into an audition and you know this choreography cold. You know it. It's in your body. It's in your breath. And then you get up there and in the middle of it, you go into that blank room and you lose it. And it just happens. And we got to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happened to me a lot. That's when I became better at improv, because I'm like, I'm going to do something while I'm in this room. But I totally agree with you. Yeah, we just psych ourselves out, or, you know, whether it's a job interview or a speech that you're about to give. I remember doing my TED Talk and being so nervous before, to the point where I said, I'm not doing any slides. And I had to like literally get rid of my slides 5 minutes before and just speak from the heart. And thank God they came out well. But if I had used the slides, I probably would have just drawn the blank and not been able to read them, because I was just so nervous about the opportunity, right? And now realizing like everything I need is already in here. So.
Well, you know, and I had an experience similar to that, where I've been asked to speak at a national conference, and I was feeling less than. This is like one of those transition moments for me of stepping up onto a bigger stage. And I was really going through this internal battle of less than. Why do they want you? It must have been a fluke that they brought you in. Someone must have canceled. Look, now you're in. I was going through all of that fear-based conversation. But what I had to do with myself is really talk myself into the idea, this is an opportunity. You've been offered this. To not take it is foolish on my part. So let's forget all this fear. Let's step up. Let's bring, like you say, our heart and soul into this work and see where it takes me. And it was a fantastic experience. It blossomed, it opened. And it also helps me understand that I do have a place. And that to me is another one of those internal shifts that we can make at any point in our life, deciding that we have a place at the table. Because if we decide we have a place at the table, it's really fascinating the number of tables that we'll suddenly be invited to sit at. But oftentimes we sit there saying, no, I don't deserve to be at that table. I don't deserve to work with that choreographer. I don't deserve to get that video contract. But if we say, you know what, I've busted myself, I do deserve this, I'm going to step up. You go in, maybe you don't get that contract, but they see that energy, you get contacted for something else.
Yeah.
You know, I was always blessed in my career that I had a lot of choreographers that really liked working with me. And so they would constantly bring me in on projects. But a lot of that had to do with because I believed that I belonged there. I believed that I was bringing something to them.
Well, and you embraced your uniqueness too. That's such a big part. I think we all want to fit in so badly that we're saying, all right, if this person is, you know, the media darling or the one that's getting casted, let's emulate them, everything from hair to voice to body. And that's not it. You know, you have to be your own unique person so that you can stand out from the crowd. How do you balance your personal life with your professional?
I think the word balance is actually a really important piece of the puzzle. I know along my lifetime, I've had some long-term relationships. My husband and I have been together 19 years at this point. And for me, it's about finding someone who can be comfortable and supportive and understand who I am as a sensitive person, as a creative, and to be able to kind of be a little bit of a foundation, a bedrock for me. Whereas I might want to go out and do everything, explore the world and do it all like in 12 hours, he'll be like, why don't we stay home tonight and just relax a little bit, make a nice dinner and do that. So it's finding someone who balances you so that I bring him up and lift him up so he doesn't just sit on the sofa and sink in there and I don't have to fly around all the time. I think there's also a really important thing. You know, we have to find someone who has an appreciation, understanding of the arts to hopefully be able to be with us as artists. I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. They don't have to be a creative type themselves, but to build relationships of people who can see our spirit and celebrate it and not be jealous of the time that we have to spend committed to our art.
Wow. Yes, that's powerful. Yeah, it's about that balance, right? That ebb and flow. But like you said, that support is really, really important. Yeah, I love it. So to ask you, so I know you're currently working with artists now, one-on-one, but again, are there other ways that they can work with you besides that, online? Or?
So I do a lot of workshops online. I've actually got some webinars coming up about like maintaining our sanity during the holidays, because you and I are recording this just before the holidays. I also, you can find me, I do a lot of speaking and educating at higher institutions. So I might be coming to a school near you. You never know.
Nice.
You can find me at johnsovec.com. That's my website. You can follow me on Twitter at johnsovec. See the theme here. And feel free to sign up for my newsletter, because that's another way that you can stay in touch with me and learn about what I'm doing coming.
Just in closing, John, if you have any words of encouragement for artists, especially emerging artists who are trying to figure this career thing out in 2020.
I guess the thing that I would encourage you is the most important thing to find as your artist is your unique artistic voice. There are lots of people who are going to teach you along the way, and you're going to pick up pieces of who they are. But I think it's so important to take those pieces and shake them up and shape them into who you want to be seen of as a performer. And to know that self that you build is going to be constantly growing and changing as you get more and more experience and work with different people. Don't be afraid of the people who are going to give you feedback and input, and also take it lightly and filter it through your true self and make sure that you're always, always staying constant to that light inside of you.
Wow, it's so cool. So powerful, so needed. Well, John, I want to thank you so much again. This has been amazing. Everybody give it up for John, wherever you are, because this, yeah, we just need this, you know, so powerful. It's a blessing to have you here. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. And everybody keep breathing and taking great care of yourself. We need to be there for each other right now.
Absolutely. So thank you to everybody who's watching and listening out there. Again, this has been Roger Lee's Artist Career Success Interviews, and we'll see you back here next time. Take care.